Horizon Chess, Omsuji Reaction. This is History of the Entire Church, I guess, by channel Redeemed Zoomer. Yes, this is another Redeemed Zoomer video. Yes, so far it's been really informative and entertaining, apparently. Yeah, this channel is good in that way. This is like a Bill Woods type of video he's doing. Like he's doing that kind of, I guess, type of thing, right? So he'll just go through the whole, a list of things fast. I don't know. So obviously I've seen the how many Bibles are the Christian denomination, but it's about the church as a whole, right? So obviously there's going to be some good and bad things, I guess, depending on how detailed he's going to cover this, or he's just going to summarize it all, I guess. How much things can you cover in 15 minutes? So I don't know, but it's going to be interesting. Let's watch this one.
Christianity. It's the world's largest religion, it's almost 2,000 years old, and it's very diverse. Sometimes it looks like this, and sometimes it looks like this. How did this happen? So right after Jesus ascended into heaven, he left the 12 apostles in charge until he comes back. When's he going to come back? Well, he said it wasn't for them to know, but still everyone thought Jesus was about to come back. So at Pentecost, the 12 apostles all receive the Holy Spirit, who empowers them to preach the gospel in many different languages. So they're living together as one big happy family and preaching to the people, and their numbers begin to increase dramatically. They're worshiping in the temple, and the Jewish leaders of the temple don't really like these new followers of Jesus, so they begin to persecute them, and they even kill some of them, starting with Steve. One of the people who persecutes the Christians is Saul of Tarsus. He's all like, "Christianity is cringe, change my mind." He changed his mind, and his name. And now it's his job to preach Christianity everywhere, not just to the Jews. He goes to a bunch of cities and begins preaching to the Gentiles, which are people who are not Jewish people.
Christianity is cringe, change my mind, walks into the church, and then you hear like, distance, "Oh my God," and walks out, "I'm a Christian now."
Which raises the question, is Christianity Jewish? Yes, said Peter. No, said Paul. Who's right? Paul is right. You don't need to become Jewish to become Christian. Cool. Now we've got Christianity all figured out. And just in time, because everyone still thinks Jesus is about...
I mean, it depends on how you present it. You don't need to become Jewish to become Christian, but Christianity does come from Judaism. I guess it's just separated from that, right? So kind of, but yeah, I guess if his question is you need to be Jewish in order to be Christian, no, that's not the case.
...to come back. Man, I'm so glad we have all these apostles who can teach us... Oh wait, no, they're dying out. Quick, preserve their teachings. So people begin preserving their teachings and writings and compiling them into what would eventually become the New Testament. And it's good that we have the New Testament, because in the second century, a bunch of weird heretics and schismatic groups begin to pop up. You've got the Gnostics, who hate the world, the Marcionites, who hate most of the Bible, the Montanists, who get a bit too crazy sometimes, and the Docetists, who think Jesus was too cool to be human. And the Apostolic Fathers, like these guys, the successors of the Apostles, are able to use the New Testament as a shield against these heresies. It's kind of hard to officially deal with these heretics, because remember, Christianity is still illegal, unless you live in Armenia, but in Rome, it's illegal. But it's hard to keep it illegal because people keep converting. Don't worry, the Emperor will solve this. Oh wait, no, he just converted as well. Now he wants everyone to be Christian, so he gathers all the Christian leaders at Nicaea to clarify what Christianity is. Well, we worship Jesus because he's God, says almost everyone. Actually, said some guy named Arius, Jesus is like God, but he's still created by God. There was a time when Jesus didn't exist. Bro, that's heresy, said Santa Claus, punching him in the face. So the Council of Nicaea clarified that Jesus is truly God. Arius got kicked out, and they wrote a statement summarizing the basics of Christianity. And the Arians kept trying to creep back into the church, but luckily St. Athanasius was able to defend the true faith, even though he was against the world at times. Cool, now we've got Christianity all figured out. Just kidding, we need a second council to clarify what the first council...
I like that, how there's confusing element of it. One guy was kind of too much literate, literally taking things into there was a time when Jesus was born, so he can't be God. That was his mentality. I guess in his mind, God has to be eternal, no start, no end. Where he didn't thought okay, God basically took form on earth, so Jesus was God in that way. I guess he didn't thought that he was taking too literally everything, right? And the other guy was basically just that, yeah, it's God who came in human form.
Council met. The Holy Spirit is also God, just in case you're wondering, and Jesus is also fully human, because this one guy thought Jesus had a human body but not a human mind. Okay, so he got kicked out, and now we've got Christianity all figured out. We know that Jesus is both truly human and truly divine. Some guy named Nestorius said, yeah, but humanity and divinity are really different things, so we gotta separate them. The human part of Jesus isn't God, and Mary gave birth to human Jesus, but not divine Jesus. Bro, that's heresy, said Cyril of Alexandria. The whole point of Christianity is God coming down, becoming human, and dying for us. So they had another council. And Cyril wins, and Nestorius gets kicked out.
Because
they
he
decide that
kinda
Mary
makes
is
sense
the mother
Christian
of
way.
God. But some people still side with Nestorius. You could make a denomination out of this. Okay, so we know that we can't separate
like the
Jesus'
Bill Wood
humanity
style.
and divinity. Now we've got Christianity all figured out. Some people really want to avoid the Nestorian error, and they don't want to separate Jesus' humanity and divinity. So they say they're united in one
I like how Bill Woods in his video, like History of the Entire World, he just said like we can make a religion out of this, and he just moves on. Redeem Zuma just took it from that. Okay, let's talk about the religion.
nature. Hold up, Jesus is one person, but he has two natures. That's Nestorian. No, it isn't. Yes, it is. No, it's not. Jesus has two natures. We can't separate them like the Nestorians did, but we can't mix them into one like you're doing. He has two natures, and they're united in one person. They have another council, and the two natures people win, and the one nature people get kicked out. But some people still side with the one nature people because they thought the Council of Chalcedon was stupid. You can make a denomination out of this. Okay, so Jesus has two natures, human and divine. We can't mix them or separate them.
Although the like, denominations are entirely getting created because some people are disagreeing on something. You would think like, you know, they will, or it makes sense the more intensified it gets, but people are taking things way too literally and literally having debate over that. It's not one human. It's divine and human nature is different. Some like, you know, it's like same but not the same. It's just like, why you first of all, why you struggle? This is God-like thing, like God-related things. It doesn't matter if it's like one nature or two nature. It's up to God, man, right? God created the world. Whether it's one or two doesn't matter.
And St. Augustine just clarified that we need to depend on God.
Surprised nobody just go like,
Now
you're
we've got
human, you won't
Christianity all
understand
figured
that.
out. Good news, it's now cool to be a Christian. Bad news, a lot of people are only being Christian because it's cool. Bro, that's so lame. I'm
Obviously.
so sick of all these phonies, say the hardcore Christians going off to live in monasteries to show how Christian
Real
they are.
Christians.
There they pray for hours, deny themselves, and sing Gregorian chants, which are a cool new style of music invented by Gregory. Knock knock, it's Muhammad. He's politely asking everyone to become Muslim, and when that doesn't work, he asks less politely. So the Muslim armies spread rapidly and take over a lot of formerly Christian lands. And if you're someone who's not Muslim living in a Muslim land, you need to pay to not be Muslim. And there's a lot of persecution of Christians. So in these times, it's very important for the Christians to stick together and defend against the Muslim empires.
Oh, here we
So
go.
it's important that Christianity stays united,
Crusades are coming.
despite cultural differences. Yo, remember the Nicene Creed, the document that says what Christianity is? The Pope wants to add something to it to clarify that the Holy Spirit proceeds from the Father and the Son. Dude, you can't change the creed, says the Patriarch of Constantinople. Yes, I can. No, you can't. You're kicked out. No, you're kicked out. So Christianity splits. You can make denominations out of this. Bro, the Muslims
Oh,
keep
this is so good. And that's because I know history of this. Is so cool, right? Because of, you know, entire thing got split apart by that time, right? Obviously, Constantinople also had its own power. Saint Constantine, you know, made a city there, and also Eastern Rome was still there. So it's just like who has the more authority here? Type of a struggle, East and West Rome, basically.
We should defend our land and maybe even retake the Holy Land. It's time for a crusade. They recruited soldiers from everywhere and got the war really hyped up. It's going to be the most epic holy war ever, and everyone thinks Jesus is about to come back. Maybe the war can reunify East and West. Just kidding, they turn on each other and they don't retake the Holy Land. But they do retake Spain and Portugal. That's actually really impressive. They
Shenanigans of the
reconquered
crusade.
Spain. They retook the Spain Line Church. Very inspiring. Anyway, the Crusades end up being kind of anticlimactic. They weren't that violent, and they definitely weren't nearly as bad as your high school history textbook probably said they were. Despite the fact that they didn't do much, there's still a lot going on. Because St. Anselm
Really?
just figured out that God exists. He exists because of the way he is. And just in time for the period of medieval scholasticism, Thomas also comes along later and finds other reasons why God exists. He also has a thing where he takes non-Christian philosophy and makes it Christian, because all truth is God's truth. He's got a whole system for figuring out
That's
everything.
okay.
And the Catholic Church gets on board. The Orthodox Church has an alternative. And he's not the only one doing this, everyone's trying to figure out everything. And since we're figuring out everything about God, we should learn about the world as well, because the world's God's creation. So they learn about astronomy, the sciences, math, and music, and lay the groundwork for modern science, because theology is the queen of the sciences. And they start the modern university system and hospital system. Now it looks like we've finally got Christianity all figured out. Bro, the church is getting kind of corrupt. Yeah, shut up. It's time for the Black Plague. Everyone's dying and no one knows why, so everyone
Oh,
thinks Jesus is
shit.
about to come back. But after the plague dies down, the church has time to party, so they make a lot of really cool art.
Imagine that, right? Like their whole thing is that when Jesus come back, he's gonna, you know, I guess, hold trial or something, right? There's a whole thing about only most just people will be left alive or something. I don't know, something like that. So imagine when Black Death comes, like third of the population died. That's how intense that was. 43% or something died, right? So people would naturally think like, oh, this is it, this is coming back, because it feels that, right? When the scale is, I mean, just COVID, when we went through, like how intense that was, how effed up that was, and that was nothing compared to Black Death. So imagine people's mentality then.
And stuff. It's the Renaissance. But who's paying for all this? Easy. The people give money to the Pope, and the Pope gives them less time in purgatory. Yeah, this is really
Solid
corrupt.
business.
It's time for some brave man to speak out against this. Martin Luther? No, it's Huss. He's going to reform the church. You can make it a nomination out of this. Except it fails and he gets executed. That's too bad. Maybe try again in 100 years. Martin Luther has something to say. 95 things, actually, so he nails them to the door of the church. Maybe he can fix the church. Except no, he gets kicked out. But churches keep siding with him and doing the Reformation anyway. So he begins reforming the church's teachings, saying that salvation's by faith alone, purgatory's not real, and the Bible is our ultimate authority. Everything gets really heated, and everyone thinks Jesus is about to come back. So the Reformation spreads throughout Germany. I wonder if it's happening anywhere else. It is actually, in Switzerland. What if we could unite the two Reformations and reform the entire church? So Luther meets with Zwingli, the head of the Swiss Reformation, to see if they agree on the issues. Bro, what do you think about the Lord's Supper? So the bread isn't really the body of Christ. What do you mean? He says, "This is my body." Well, is means represents. No, is means is. Is means is. Calm down, Luther. Get out, Zwingli. So that failed, and now there's two Reformations.
You need to think it more like a more metaphoric way. I wasn't being literal. What you talking about? Is means is. Like he's a German. Well, he was a German, right? Because it started in Germany. I'm seeing like German level of patentism there. I'm like, just, all issues are fine, but one, the bread. Oh, hell no, we're not doing this.
You can make denominations out of this. And there's also some radicals who don't want to be part of either because they want to change everything, and that means not baptizing babies. You can make a denomination out of this. Man, all these reformations going on, says King Henry VIII.
There you go.
Don't worry, Pope.
English
I will
church is
never
coming.
leave you. Bro, you can't divorce your wife, says the Pope. So Henry cancels the Pope and makes himself the head of the Church of England. You can make a denomination out of this. Looks
Have you seen my portrait? How much I, artificially makes my, private part look bigger? You really think I can do this? The whole alpha culture that we have today, I'm guessing King Henry was the first of them. I guess I can do anything.
Looks like Zwingli just died, so John Calvin is predestined to take over the Reformation in Switzerland. And he's predestined to write a big book about a bunch of stuff, including the fact that God's in control of everything, especially whether or not you'll be saved. And he wants to unify with the Lutherans, so he modifies the Reformed view of the Lord's Supper. He says we really do receive the body and blood of Christ, just spiritually. He sends them his view, but they're predestined to leave him unread. John Knox takes Calvin's Reformed ideas to Scotland, and makes it so that the church is run by elders. You can make a denomination out of this. But
Isn't
the Church
he
of
the
England
one?
still isn't
Right?
sure
I
whether
think
it's Reformed or
what he
Catholic.
says.
I guess it's somewhere in the middle. Bro, that's not good enough, say the Puritans, trying to purify the Church of England of everything Catholic. You can make a denomination out of this. Some of them give up on trying to purify the church and just run away
What
to
the
America. It takes a bit of time for the dust to settle, but once it does, it's time for Protestant scholasticism. Let's write down everything we believe.
Where we figure out everything, right? This is what happens when you talk about God and starter of everything, and but it's basically God-related things, right? How many times did they just butted their head because they wanted to figure out everything without realizing that what everything is way too big and strong, and you can just fucking do that, right? So they're gonna struggle, and yeah, let's figure out everything. Yeah, it's that easy.
And put our beliefs into neat theological systems. The Dutch Calvinists are writing everything they believe, including the whole predestination thing. Arminius is one of them, but he doesn't like that part. So in response, the Dutch Reformed clarify what the Calvinist position is. But aside from that...
Yeah, because whole thing of church is to be a just man or something, right? Just people. Because, it doesn't matter, that you can confess and things and all that. I think the whole Christianity thing is how you're going to live your life. That's how you're going to, whether you're going to be saved or not will be based on that. That's why you can do everything, like ask for forgiveness and shit like that. If you say like it's just predestined, like that removes fucking everything. Like, what's the point of doing anything if it's everything predestined?
This inspires people to start a bunch of universities to study all sorts of things, and people's religious beliefs inspire them to make advancements in math, music, law, and philosophy, and now it looks like we've got Christianity all figured out. Bro, this is all going way too far. We need less of this nerdy theology and more personal piety, say the pietists who think the Lutheran churches are getting way too nerdy. And they invent the concept of a Bible study because everything needs to be more personal. Something similar is happening in the American colonies, where a bunch of preachers go around and preach personal religious experience over religious ritual. Is this a good thing? Churches split over this. One of these awakening guys is John Wesley, who wants to awaken the Anglican Church, which he thinks has gotten spiritually cold. He starts a movement which ends up making a denomination out of this. So all this questioning of religious authority is leading people to question everything, which leads to the Enlightenment. America questions whether they need a king. France goes even further and questions whether they need God. I bet they're going to be the most...
Really? Is that, I mean, I think the whole reason of American Revolution was the taxes, right? Was that because of that? Do we need... I don't think that was ever a question of do we need a king or not. They were more than happy with the king. I think it's that representation wasn't there, right? At least that was the core fuel of it. I don't know. Maybe there'll be more feeling about that. Who knows?
Enlightened people ever. Oh, wait, no, they just killed everyone. Let's not do that. But anyway, the Enlightenment makes everything more secular, and some people adopt a more deistic view of God, which causes other people to think we need another Great Awakening. People are starting to distrust traditional religion. So now we've got revivals, social movements, and societies galore. There's also the Restorationist movement, where people try to rebuild Christianity from scratch. You can make a bunch of denominations out of this, some of which...
Church of Christ, Seventh-day Adventists, I've heard of that. Jehovah's Witnesses, I've definitely heard of that. People love that, apparently. Mormons, men love that a lot, I guess. Mormons things. Nazarene Holiness, I have no idea. I've never heard of that one.
...are actually heretical. And do I even need to say it? But that's all going on in America. How's Europe doing? Prussia just said the Lutheran and Reformed churches in their country have to unite, and they end up just being reformed. So some of the Lutherans run away to America. I wonder how the Catholics are doing. I haven't checked in on them in a while.
Yeah, I think like religious persecution, it's not a real thing, and I'm just going to force these two churches together. That's going to be fine. Definitely you're not going to have issue seeing the history of all things, right? That's how religion thing works, I guess. Just force them together. That's going to be fine.
They just had a council where they said the Pope can make infallible statements. Things are pretty crazy for the Protestants, too. They're being influenced by the Enlightenment, which leads to theological liberalism, which is basically where Christians stop believing in Christianity. You see, now we're enlightened. We know miracles can't happen because there's no examples of them happening, because all supposed examples of miracles have a natural explanation, because everything has a natural explanation, because miracles can't happen. Makes perfect sense. So there's no virgin birth, no divine revelation, Jesus didn't do any miracles, and there's no resurrection. Bro, you're denying the fundamentals of Christianity, say the fundamentalists, yelling at the modernists who are beginning to take over the mainstream churches. But
I'm not gonna lie, I think fundamentalists are the one, I think they're right. Not that I believe in them, right? I'm a more of a scientific guy, so obviously you all know where I'm gonna land on all these things. But as when religious thing comes from, you believe in Christianity. The whole Christianity, is basis on Jesus being divine being. Let's just ignore that maybe he didn't do any miracles, fine. But are you saying like he never was reborn or something, right? He was just a dude, he was never reborn and everything like that. I mean, that's just like the whole Christianity doesn't make sense after that. That's literally the core of things. You're denying the core of things, trying to make sense of it more scientific, right? You want to be more like scientific, more like I don't know, down to nature guy who questions everything. You can't be a religious guy at that point. I mean, nowadays I think that most people are like that, but they just see that religion as something like they have like this spiritual thing, right? At least a lot of people. But if you're going to be like proper Christian at this level, you can't have a whole denomination, let's just say, who says like Jesus didn't do any miracle or wasn't even reborn. At that point, Christianity doesn't exist. That's the whole thing of it.
The instinct of the fundamentalists isn't really to reform the churches, it's more like they want to run away, because they're still coming out of the Great Awakening. And they're beginning to distrust everything mainstream, like mainstream schools, mainstream universities, mainstream science, and they want to retreat from the cities because they think Jesus is going to come back anyway, so they should just retreat to the rural areas until that happens. And with the fundamentalists gone, it just makes the mainline churches even more theologically liberal.
Yeah, I think there's more of a religious way of explaining this, but I think the people ran away because you can't have a modern world without modern view. Modern view is anti-belief. Without belief, there is no religion or churches, or let's just say Christianity. So modern world, the more scientific way you make it modern, the more world progresses, they are going to deny all this belief system. Like, what miracle? You talk that I've never seen a miracle. What you talk, basically more scientific way of seeing things. So the more that happens, people who don't believe in things like that, of course it's miracle, of course Jesus was reborn, obviously going to run away from that. I think that's what more happened there, right? So, it's not just about running away. I think the whole modern world, with the most people who are religious, they just feel religion in their, at least a spiritual level. They believe in Jesus and God. Anything in between, they're not going to think about it. They're not going to think about miracle. They're not going to think about anything, because they're not going to, this is more of a modern world, man. When you have science basically explaining things that are happening billions of years away, they can split atom right now, right? Make a light out of basically nothing, right? When you have things like that, people are going to believe in more modern things, more. So most world is basically that, who just believe in Jesus and God and don't think about anything in between. So people who religiously believe in these Christian biblical things about miracles and all that, all the saints, and what is it? Who are the saints that died out? I forgot. The main people who basically spread the Christianity. People who believe in that, of course, they're going to run away.
Yo, a bunch of people just had some serious spiritual experiences on Azusa Street. You can make a denomination out of this. Also, sick of theological liberalism? Karl Barth sure is, because after World War I he realized that human progress can't save us. But he's not a fundamentalist either, so he has a sort of...
Yeah, I think World War I probably feed into that. It's seeing all the horror. Basically, you can't... People need to put some kind of a cause on something. If you experience something, you need to put that somewhere, because something can't happen from nothing. So somebody sees World War I and they have to like this is all because of how humans are basically becoming more modern, all this scientific technology. Humans are just becoming worse type of thing. So you can kind of see that coming after seeing the World War I's horror. Especially with the mustard gas and all this technology.
And he signs a statement with Dietrich Bonhoeffer saying they're not going to be fascist. And after World War II starts, yeah. After the war is over, the state of Israel forms, which causes a rise in dispensationalism, which is where people think Israel's going to make Jesus come back. Also, some fundamentalists want a more friendly diet version of fundamentalism, partly because they don't like racial segregation. Speaking of evangelicals, a lot of churches are now non-denominational. It's actually Baptist, but don't worry about it. And a lot of conservative Christians are flocking to these non-denominational churches from the mainline churches, which only causes the mainline churches to become more theologically liberal. I wonder what the Catholics are up to. They just had another council. They clarified that the Pope is only infallible in very special cases. And they said that Protestants are still technically Christian, so that means they can start to be more ecumenical. How's the Eastern Orthodox Church? Persecuted. How's the Oriental Orthodox Church? Persecuted. Hey, can pastors be women? Yes, said the liberals. No, said the conservatives. And the liberals win, so the conservatives get kicked out. Actually, no, they don't really get kicked out. But they run away anyway, and they make their own evangelical denominations, which only causes the mainline church to get more theologically liberal. These evangelical denominations have a new style of worship music, and their numbers are rising, even though Christianity in the West overall is collapsing. It's exploding in Africa and Asia, though. Hey, can marriage be gay? Yes, said the liberals. No, said the
I don't think it's exploding in Asia and Africa. I think there are some conversion, and how it was before compared to that is rising, but not at the level you think. All around the planet, religion is going down. It makes sense when you think about it, right? The more modern world becomes, right, the more you see pictures from Hubble and shit of things distance away. People usually literally using maths to basically predict something that's going to happen 80 years from now, some asteroid passing by and all that. People see this evidence and they're going to be more questioning everything, right? Can't put that much emphasis on belief, and belief is literally the core thing of our religion, so it kind of makes sense.
Conservatives, and the liberals win, so the conservatives run away again. And at this point, the mainline churches are so theologically liberal that most of the churches within them don't even really believe in Christianity at all.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So if you're in America and you go to the old historic church in the center of any given town, like First Presbyterian Church or First Methodist Church or First Anything Church, chances are it's a mainline church that's so theologically liberal it doesn't even have any real Christian believers in it. There's evangelical churches that have a lot of passionate believers, but they're kind of on the outskirts of society. So Western Christendom is basically dead, unless we retake the mainline church.
Retake?
Chances are,
That's kind of intense. What do you mean by retake? I don't think there's any retaking. It's all based on belief, and people don't have belief. Like, look, mainline church, the way he explains it, was going to happen anyway, right? There was gonna this like modern question on belief was coming, right? So, and people who don't believe in that, was inevitably gonna run. So what mainline church is today was gonna happen anyway. There's no retaking it, right? The whole Christianity is based on belief, and in modern world, belief is going down. The more science is opposite of belief system, so basically opposite of religion in that way. And science is rising when everything around you just making more scientific. It's feeling weird to say that everything's scientific. Science literally means knowledge of everything. So the more knowledge grows, the more belief is going to go down. Yeah. Right, well, that was history of the entire church, I guess, by channel Redeem Zoomer. If you like my Erickson phone, subscribe. If you want me to do any specific video like this about, Christianity or something, comment down. Yeah, I'll see you next time.